Hi, I'm Dale Larson. I want to welcome you to my shop. Today we're going to talk about turning spheres, but first I thought I would show you some different spheres from around the world and some of the things you can do with a sphere. So this is just a walk through some of the spheres from around the world. This is Christian Bouchard's. This is part of his Old Earth series. This is one piece of wood. It's Cuban mahogany. Christian's the one that taught me how to do spheres. We've had him up here a couple of times over the years. And I simply love his Old Earth series spheres. Just turned solid round, hollowed out, carved. All of these lines are carved, are done with the long point of the skew. So there's Christian's sphere. This is one I've done. This is just a solid sphere that I've hollowed out. And then I've remounted it, and I'll show you with the jam chuck a little bit later on putting the beads on here with the jam chuck. So just a pretty simple sphere. This is a collab. I did this threaded sphere, and then Graham Priddle did the texturing on it. So something else you can do with a sphere, you can do threading. Pretty simple project, and I love Graham's work. Right here is my salt and pepper shaker set. This is African blackwood. This is holly. And these are the most difficult thing that I do. This is a threaded box. And in this case, these are all done to a scale of 3 inches because I have to do the inside first, do all the inside turning first, thread it together, and then turn the sphere, stick it in the jam chuck, and do the beadings. So this is the most critical thing that I do. Another thing you can do is nested sphere sets. So the first one here, this is big leaf maple. I did this a couple of years ago for the AEW show. Spheres 2. I did not get selected. Dang. The second one here is Pacific Madrone. The third one is Canary Wood. Canary Wood's a wonderful turning wood. This one is King Wood, another premium turning wood. Zirconi. Camphor burl, and this one's not threaded. And the last one is holly, and it's solid. So there's a nested sphere set. This is a solid sphere by Dr. Bob Roach back in West Virginia. He took a class from me about 10 years ago at Campbell, learned how to turn spheres, and now his work has been in I don't know how many juried shows. He just does absolutely wonderful woodworking and texturing. This is Al Hockenberry down in Florida. You have a sphere and a sphere, and he's done a sphere and a sphere and a sphere. You can do as many as you want. Kind of a cool idea. Eli Avicera from Israel. This is a segmented sphere. He's done 6 of these discs and made a sphere out of it. The wood here is olive, the wood on the rim, and right here, this is my madrone that I've sent him over the years. So there's one segmented sphere. This next one is Bill Smith, who does beautiful segmented work. Bloodwood and holly. And so just some absolutely, I love segmented work. I just don't do it. I love it. And finally, we have Hans Weisfog from Germany. This box is 3 layers, blackwood, boxwood, blackwood. And typically he's gone halfway through the boxwood here and halfway through on the blackwood here. And you get this fabulous pattern. And so that's some of Hans's work. Anyway, so that's just a brief to show you some of the different things you can do with a sphere. So the next thing we're going to do is go over to the lathe, and we're going to turn a couple of spheres, and then I'm going to show you how to use jam chucks. So we're going to take a second here, and we're going to set up on the lathe. Again, welcome to the shop. Today we're going to do spheres. When I cut up a block of wood, I cut it up for bowls. Roger can take a picture a little bit later. But the scrap I just take and I bandsaw into these rounds, date them, throw them up on the shelf, and when they're dry I make spheres out of them, or hollow forms, or whatever I want. But today we're going to make spheres. So I've got a piece of madrone on here, and I'm just going to turn it into a sphere. Mostly I'm going to use a 1/2-inch bowl gouge. It's the only tool I'm really going to use today. I might use the parting tool a little bit, and I use the Wolverine grinding system to sharpen it. Just a point on safety. I've got safety glasses on. When I'm roughing out, I wear a face shield. When I finish turn, I don't wear a face shield. And I know that I'm accepting some risk, but that's a choice that I've made. And I'm going to start with the speed down a little bit. That's a little bit slow. I'm going to kick the speed up a little bit. The first thing is to get this round. That's the first step. Just simply get it round. Make sure I got everything clamped down. The tool rest is a little bit low. You can use the back of your tool to see if you're round. I'm going to raise the tool rest just a little bit. I have the cutting angle about 45 degrees. It doesn't really matter. None of these are finishing cuts. Okay, we're round. The next thing I'm going to do is just make one end square. And you could use a parting tool here. I just turn the gouge with the bevel perpendicular and go straight in. And I just eyeball it close. It's not real critical at this point. The next thing I'm going to do is take my calipers, turn the lathe off. You do not want to put this on a moving piece of wood. You'll get what I call a UFO, which is an unintended flying object. And so we don't want that. And it looks like I might have a bigger diameter than I have a length. But so there's our diameter. Yep, and I do. So I've got to clean up this end so it's square, and I'm going to have to take my diameter down a little bit. So I'm going to do the same on this end that I just did on this end. And I know I have to take my diameter down, so I'm going to do some of that. The first step in getting a sphere is to get the diameter and the length equal. So I'm just going to get the length here, which I know is the smallest one. Okay, there's that. All right, so we're pretty close. I've got to take it down just a hair to get the diameter equal to the length. Check it here, we should be pretty close. No, not quite. One, maybe two more cuts. We should be about there. Close enough. When I'm turning this sphere today, it's on 3 axes. Sorenberger turns, and he cuts first 45 on each side, and he cuts a 22.5 on each of those. He's a little more mechanical. This is a little bit more freeform. So right now my length and my diameter are equal. I'm going to mark the center. So there's center. I joke about this, but if I've lived my life clean, haven't made any mistakes in my entire life, when I get done, that line should be in the finished sphere. That's the only part here that's round now that'll be in the finished sphere. So the next step I'm going to do is just round the corners, get this rough round. And so the key to this cut is I start on the bevel and I pivot my right arm here. And I just stay right on the bevel. I'm riding the bevel. And the key is to always keep this arm moving. If you go straight, you'll put a flat on here. The person that's best, excuse me, that turns spheres on one axis is Mike Hoslick. He's really good. Most of you have probably seen his Spaceballs that he makes. And he turns those on one axis. You're going to see me turning this sphere on 3 axes. And I'm just eyeballing it. I'm going to put this white background down here just to help me see the profile. We'll check on the camera and see if that interferes with the camera. What you don't want to do at this point is take too much wood off. It's better to leave a little bit of extra wood because it'll come off in the next step. So one of the things I should point out here is I leave on each end, I leave a little bit of a flat right there on each end. That is, the length is equal to the diameter. That is important because when I go to the next step, I'm going to need to measure to this pencil mark to get this back on center. You'll see that when I get to the next step. And the other thing is, you notice I've switched hands. If I tried to turn right-handed, which I'm right-handed, my body would be in the way of my tool. So you just have to learn to switch hands and go left-handed. And again, I'm just riding on the bevel. In this case, I'm moving my left hand away from my body. Just kind of looking over. I've got a flat up here at the top. I can't have that flat. And that's pretty good for the first step. I could take just a hair more off right down here. We'll just take a little bit more off right now. But you'll notice I've left that flat on the end. So you can actually take a parting tool, come in here if you want, just so you've got a nice flat on each end. Okay. If I was doing say in a given day, I'd do 15 or 20 spheres when I'm doing semi-production work. And you can see now I have a stub on each end. I'll go over to the bandsaw, I'll cut these off. This is a V-block. You don't want to just put this sphere on here. It'll catch and you won't be able to control it. It would probably be better if I had some like carpet or something in here, but I'm pushing, the pressure is down on the V-block, and I'm going to go real slow into the bandsaw. So. And you also notice that my hands are completely out of the way of the blade. If this catches, it's going to spin and throw it. It doesn't do that for me, but it could. But my hands are away from the blade. So the V-block's just done on the table saw. Set the blade at 45 degrees, make 2 cuts, and then you can see sometimes if you need to, like, say you have a cylinder and you need to cut a line in your cylinder, you can put it in here, and you can see I just cut right into it. Over time I destroy these V blocks and I have to make another one. So it's quite handy for if you need to do a cylinder cut or something also. So now I'm going to switch over and I'm going to use cup chucks. This is going to be the one I'm going to use today. It's a piece of dogwood, just hollowed out a little bit here with a little bit of cork on it. That's got a number 2 Morris taper. It's going to go in there. For the tailstock, this is a one-way live center. It's got a little 0 Morris taper. Robust one is straight, so you can make whatever needs to fit. That just fits right in there like that. But they can be any size. If you're going to do smaller spheres, here's a set I made for some smaller spheres, and I even made one smaller than this. These right here are good up to about 5.5, maybe 6 inches. Above that, you would need to make bigger cup chucks. And then sometimes, I'll put those out of the way, if you don't have this kind of where you can knock the point out, then this is a 3/4 10. This is a 3/4 10, and I've just threaded it with a 3/4 10 tap, and you can thread it on there and you have a cup chuck. So you can do it either way. So this cup chuck is about 1 1/8 1/4 in diameter. And like I said, it's good for 3 to 5 inches mostly. Most of my spheres, this sphere here is just under 4 inches. Between 3.5 and 5 inches, a sphere is comfortable in the hands. Gets above 5 inches, it's not really comfortable to hold. And if it gets below 3 inches, it's not very comfortable to hold. So most of my spheres are 3.5 to 5 inches. All right, this was the first axis. Came off the lathe like this. You can see the center line that we put on it. The rule is always put the line parallel to the bed. This puts us on our second axis. And I just lightly closed it in there like that right now. Move my tool rest up. And I'm going to go over to the chalkboard and show you my next step, because it's going to show you a little better. All right, I want to show here because it's a little bit hard to see on the lathe. Here's our sphere that we have on there now. We've moved it to the second axis. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure from the edge of the tool rest to this point on the sphere. And then I'm going to rotate it 180 degrees, and I'm going to measure this point here when it's over here. It doesn't matter what that distance is, it just has to be the same. If this distance is the same to this distance to the tool rest, then we're back on center. And then I'll rotate it 90 degrees and I'll do these 2 points, just keeping the distance equal between the tool rest and the sphere. It's not real critical on these solid spheres, because if you don't get it quite back to center, you just end up with a little bit smaller sphere. When I'm doing the threaded spheres, it has to be exact. You have to get it exactly back to center or your threads aren't balanced. So in this case, I'm just measuring from the tool rest to the sphere and making sure it's equal all the way around. All right, so now I'm just going to measure. And again, you saw I have the black line on a flat spot on each end, and I'm just going to measure to that. So it doesn't matter what it is, 4.5 sixteenths, 4.5. So it's actually, I by pure chance got it roughly centered on that one. Now I'm going to balance the line, 4.5 and 3.5. So this side is closer than this side. So I'm just going to move it this way, 1/2 16. All right, there's 4 and 4. So we're back, we're centered. We're as centered as we can be. I'm just going to snug this down just a little bit, not too tight, but just snug it down a little bit. And now I'm going to turn it on. And I don't know if we can show on the camera, there is a solid which is round, and then there's a blurry edge which is not round. So I'm simply going to take off the blurry edge of the wood that's not round. And it tells you exactly which wood to take off. Again, same exact motion as the first time. Taking my right hand, pivoting it away from the body, and you can hear it's not round right there. Come back here, we're still not quite round here. You can use the back of the tool if you want. And again, you don't want to take off too much wood. You can kind of use your finger here now. It's not down to round yet. The next cut you can do is you can take the gouge, turn it on its side, and this is a shear scrape. I'm not on the bevel. You just lightly touch the wood, take off the high spots. All right, so switch hands again. Again, don't try to take it all off at once. When I'm teaching bowl turning, I like to take it for a week-long class. I like to take Wednesday and teach people to do spheres because it teaches them to be nice to the wood as you're turning. If you've got a sharp gouge, you don't need to put a lot of pressure into the wood. So I'm just using my finger to feel round. We're still not down to round. Okay, pretty good. I got a little bit of a high spot right here. A little bit of a high spot right there. Okay, remember, this is the second axis. We've got one more axis to go on. Right about there, just a touch. Okay, okay. That's good enough for now. Take a line. I might have to look at this. I feel a bump of some kind here. Oh, see, we're not quite down to round right here. I need to take a little bit more off, just a little bit more. Right? Good enough. You don't want to put a hard pencil mark on here, a real light pencil mark, because you're going to have to take that off. And so, okay, that's our second axis. So we now have two sets of lines on here. There's our first line. Here's our second line. This is really easy to determine where your third axis is. Put both lines parallel to the bed, so that both lines are parallel to the bed. And now we're on our third axis. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to measure, get it back to center. And I'm just under 4, just over 4. I got to come this way just a hair. Okay, 4, 4, under 4, and under 4. Good enough. All right. And we're ready to go again. Now we're on our third axis. And almost, it's pretty much round right here and here. It's not round right here where we had it between the cup chucks. So I'm just going to take a very little bit of wood off. Not very much. Again, I'm using the shear scrape. I'm going to switch back over to. This cut gets you a cleaner cut. It's a little bit harder to get the shape exactly right, which I can do with the shear scraping. Just because we got the camera, I'll switch off. All right, close. We're going to shear scrape here. Just good enough. All right, now we're going to sand. And for this, I am going to turn the dust system on, so we'll be just not going to fill my shop full of dust. You have to sand on at least 2 axes. I start with 100 grit. And I don't know if you saw, I didn't have enough pressure on it, spun on this end, so it burned a little bit of a circle in my wood. And you don't have to get it sanded or centered quite exact. It still sands fine. 220. And we have a sphere. It takes me about, a little less than 10 minutes if I'm doing a bunch of them to do a sphere. So there's the first one. I'm going to go through it again, just so that people with another piece of wood, so you can kind of see it twice, and we'll go do that. So anyway, there's the first one. All right.